How to make chains in crochet. So when you look at the loop on your hook, it'll be an upside down teardrop shape. You want the tip of your hook to point toward the tip of the teardrop so that it can glide through without getting caught on anything. You also want the loop to be big enough to glide up and down the hook without it getting stuck. Then before you wrap the hook around the yarn, you want the tip of the hook to face you, and then you want to point it down and glide it through the loop on your hook. You also want to make sure that you rotate your wrist and not the hook between your fingers, and that'll give you extra control. If you're having trouble letting the yarn glide along your left hand, reset after every chain until you get the muscle memory down. Be sure to like and follow for more tips like this. So here I just want to take a quick moment to go over the different parts of a chain. So the top here is a series of V's that look like they're stacked on top of each other. So there's one here, and all the way down. On the back side, you have the back loop, and the back loop is essentially a straight line of loops leading all the way back to the slip knot, right here. In the comments, I'm going to have videos linked on what it looks like when you work into each of the 3 loops. So here we have the top loop, and then the bottom loop, and finally the back loop. So be sure to go check them out if you're curious. So this is how you work into the top loop of a crochet chain. First, you want to make sure that the loop on your hook moves up and down freely, even while you're holding it in place. And then you want to insert the tip of your hook into the center of the V that I talked about in the last video. Now, moving kind of quickly through the stitches because I mostly want to show you how to insert your hook into the chain to pick up that top loop, not so much how to do the stitch. So in the next section, I have a couple rows of single crochet, but I don't want you to look at those. I want you to look at that edge. So sometimes when your chains are a little loose, there can be a little bit of a gap, but I generally like how it looks. It looks like woven to me almost, but I'll have the videos for the other techniques in the comments. This is how you work into the bottom loop of a crochet chain. You're going to take your hook and you're going to move it to the back of the chain, and then you're going to try and pick up that bottom loop right there. And when you work the stitch, it's actually going to rotate that bottom loop to the top, and now the back loop is facing you. And for the rest of the chain, you're just going to be working into the new top loop. It's not a very common method. You may not like it, but at least now you can't say that you've never seen it. Here I have a couple rows of single crochet, and when we look at the bottom, there's that back loop facing out. And then when I flip it to the wrong side, it looks just like I did when I was working in the top loop. That's it. Happy hooking! How to work into the back loop of a crochet chain. First, I'm going to rotate my chain so that the back loops are facing me. Then I'm going to skip the first loop and work into the second loop by inserting my hook from the bottom up. I'm rotating my hook using my wrist so that the yarn glides through easily without getting stuck on any of the loops. This is my favorite method, but I don't always use it because it's not always practical, but it is absolutely the prettiest. So here I've got a couple rows of single crochet, and if you look at the bottom, you have a very pretty V edge that looks just like the top of a chain. And then if you look at the top of the crochet stitches, you'll also have a very pretty V edge that also looks like the top of the chain. But now let's compare the 3. So here we have what it looks like when you work into the back loop, and then here's what it looks like when you work into the bottom loop with the back loop facing up. And then finally, the most conventional one, when you work into the top loop. Let me know which one's your favorite. So the biggest thing about working into the different loops on a crochet chain is preference. The back loop creates an identical top and bottom. If you work into the bottom loop, you have the back loop facing out if you're looking at the right side of the piece. And then when you're working into the top loop, you have kind of like a woven end on the bottom. Now there's different methods that you can sew pieces together, and they're going to look different depending on which loop you used. But in the end, it just depends on the effect you're trying to create. I've never met anybody that actually looked at the foundation row to see which loop you used for your chains.